was able to come in. So we started recording. We are waiting for Magdalena and Pedro. Magdalena is already joining. She's our colleague from Chile. So we will get started, and then along the way, Pedro and our colleague Magdalena will join. Let's hope we won't have any more problems. So we will start right now, right? Whenever you're ready. We are all here. So we'd like to greet all the colleagues that are here with us in this webinar, focused on Blue communities and organized by the Public and Community Platform of the Americas. I think we can call this an intercontinental webinar, keeping in mind that the Blue communities are becoming more and more a seal that identifies us in all the latitudes as an integrating part of the movement for water justice, for the defense of water as a common good and a fundamental right, and also a way to symbolize our commitment, ethical commitment to water, to a relationship with water, understood as a matrix of life and as a common good by excellence, and precisely also marking the commitment that we have against all forms of privatization of water, its commercialization, its commodification, the diversion of its flows, pollution, the hoarding, all forms of privatization that have led us to live a crisis of water that from our point of view, we have a social crisis of water created by greed, crisis created by the hoarding processes, and a crisis that is linked to the capitalist production model that in this century have caused disasters, as we say, from environmentalism and political economy, as it has led us to a collapse and a situation of extinction of climate variability, with a climate change that forces us to go deeper into our commitments, our ethical and our day-to-day commitment to water, and our impact in being capable to change this privatization mindset. Organizations such as the Canadian Council and the networks and movements at the international level, we have met to defend water as a human right and as a common good. And we have a movement that is growing, starting in Latin America. We're giving the Blue communities a sense, as a seal, as a certificate that we are committed with the self-management of water, with management of water with a community model. And this shows that opposite to privatization, the organized community are rising through cultural and environmental practice around providing services. This becomes a force against the privatization and against commercialization. We have many academic, religious, educational institutions, organizations that have uh, been are linked to this movement and what our commitment means when we call ourselves blue communities. It's the acknowledgement of water as a common good and a human right. It's a promotion of cooperation among the communities and the public community associations. It's the defense of territory and life. So we belong to a cycle that we can call a social cycle, a social to which we are committed and that must make us a part of the whole process of recovering water. We reject all the forms of commodification and commercialization of water, such as bottled water, which is the business of multinationals. That bottled water and carbonated drinks or sodas. We needed to have a transparent management of water and to see water used in conditions that the purity of their origin can be recovered in the springs and other water sources. So I would like to welcome you and so that we can start this conversation. And we have a very special guests. We have several guests, special guests.
So we are going to ask all our guests to give a brief presentation. I'm going to mention name. We have Marco Job of the Center of International Volunteership. Maybe we can start with him because, I'm going to ask all guests to say their name, their organization, and why they are here. We also have Luis Babiano, Leonard Chang. Then we also have Lucia Galvez. We have our friend Pedro Castañeda. I hope he has joined meanwhile. And then we also have another guest, Magdalena. She's also here with us today. Magdalena, yes, I believe you are here, right? So I'm going to ask you to start. Please say your name. Please mention what organization you represent, your commitment to water. So we will start with a very brief round of introductions to see who are the guests today. So let's start with Marco. Thank you, Javier. It's a pleasure to be here. Greetings to all of you. For me, it's a great pleasure to participate in this webinar. I'm Marco of the CEVIC, the Center of International Volunteership of Italy. We work in the city of Udine in the north of Italy. CEVI has been committed for many years to the topic of water, namely the recognition of water as a right, the fight against privatization of water in Italy and the rest of the world. We have participated in many international events on this. We are here today because, in the last 2 years, we have been working on the promotion of blue communities in Italy. And later I will explain a little bit more what results we have achieved so far. But, well, I am here today because I want to explain what we have achieved. And, what we have achieved is to have an exchange with other blue communities in Europe and Latin America. Thank you. Thank you, Marco. Also, welcome to Magdalena Morgan from Chile, from Petorca. Magdalena, how are you? Who are you? And what are you doing here today? Hi, good morning to all of you. My name is Magdalena. I work for the Rural Drinking Water Union in the community of Petorca. So I work at the water cooperative. I'm also a leader in that union of water cooperatives in the River Petorca Basin. So we work together with 24 organizations that self-manage water in their communities, in their small communities even. So we work with those diverse communities, small communities. Often the water committees are led by women in those communities. And we also, so as I have said, we work in Petorca. Petorca is an extremely dry area because there is over exploitation of the water sources, especially because of the avocado and citrus fruit crops that we have in Petorca and that have changed the traditional agricultural and livestock production patterns. So because of that, Petorca is now subject to an overexploitation of both the lands and the water. Welcome, Magdalena. Magdalena, later you will have a chance to talk a little bit more about your work. Let's say also hello to Leonard Chang. Leonard, can you please introduce yourself? Very briefly, your name and why you are here.
Good
You
afternoon,
are
everyone. My name is Leonard Shankwote. I'm based in Accra, Ghana. I represent the Blue Planet Project in Africa. And as part of that, also the coordinator of the Africa Water Justice Network, basically working here to maintain water as a public good and fight the notion of it being an economic good. And that's what we've been doing for the past decade. And basically, recently, we found the Blue Communities also as an interesting campaign tool, and here to share our experiences with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Lucia, you're next. Lucia from Colombia, from the region where we are today. Lucia, welcome. So what are you doing here in this webinar, Lucia, with us? Well, good morning. I'm Lucia Galvis. I'm part of the Cascajo Aqueducts Association in Marinilla, Antioquia in Colombia. And while I'm here in this webinar today to tell you about my experience with the Blue community since 2019. So we have done a couple of things regarding Blue communities that I will share with you. Things related to life, water, and territory. Well, that's me. Very well. Let's go to Spain. Luis Babiano. Luis, can you tell us who you are and what you're doing here today? Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Basically, I'm Luis Babiano. I'm the manager of the Association of Public Operators at the level of the state. It's a well-known association, no IOPAS. So in that association, we have 71 public operators of different sizes. For example, the operators of a very important metropolitan city, but also very small towns. So I come from a public tradition, from a public background, where I have worked for 30, 40 years. And while our towns in Spain are working on a better management of water, and to become consolidated as water self-managers. And well, for example, I will talk a little bit later. Later, I will talk a little bit more about one example of the deprivatization of the water service in one town in Spain. That is part of our association. As you know, the public model is a model, is a condition. It is a condition that is necessary to ensure the notion of the blue communities, and the blue communities are basically only about managing water and sanitation from a perspective of human rights. That is how we can summarize this very briefly. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Luis. Later you will have a chance to talk a little bit more about your examples. No, sure. I only wanted to say that the firmest steps are taken today by the members of IOPAS in Spain, who are adopting the Decalogue within the framework of the Blue communities. Thank you and welcome, Luis. And now let's go to Pedro from Boyacá, also in Colombia. Pedro, can you also introduce yourself briefly, please? Pedro, I believe you had some difficulties to join this meeting. Let's see if we can connect with Pedro. Pedro, I read that you had joined. Can you please introduce yourself, Pedro? But I'm not seeing him. Anyway, I'm not seeing him right now. Yeah, he seems to have some difficulties to connect. Anyway, let's see if he can join later. He seems to be... Anyway, these are the people who are here with us today in this conversation. We hope that this will be a very practical conversation based on practical experiences, in the understanding that today, more than ever, we need to build this brotherhood between our struggles, between our achievements, between our resistance, to resist what is coming, to resist the changes that are coming in terms of water management. So together we have to gather our efforts with networks, etc., to defend life, water, and territories. So I would like to start with, this conversation with the first question. And I'm going to invite Lucia Galvis to answer this first question. Lucia, you have had a life devoted to community management of water. And so now, Lucia, we would like you to tell us a little bit more about the background, the history of your organization, your territory, the experience in the community regarding water management. And we are talking about a peasant community that is being surrounded by many threats: monocrops extraction, urbanization. So the community is subject to many threats. So can you tell us a little bit more about water management in that very difficult context, how the community has organized around these threats, and also the role of women, who are always in the first line of this? Over to you, Lucia. Sure, Javier. As I have said before, so I'm Lucia Galvis, and this community-based organization is an organization that has really been a school of learning for me. So I am a woman who has been empowered in my territory in terms of community management and in terms of water management. Because, you know, the community cannot exist without water. And imagine if you have a community, but if you do not have water, then you cannot survive, of course, as a community. So from a community-based perspective, and as part of the community, I have been working on several aspects related to development of my community and to my people. And well, in the year 2000, the association well, I became part of the board of the association, and then I became the secretary of the board of Aqueducto, the association, and now, and well, and now I'm the coordinator of Aqueducto of the association. And so as a coordinator, together with the teams, I have been working since 2007 on water management. So I have been an employee of Aqueducto since 2007. And since 2007, we have been working on, on organizing the community around water. And so we have started to get training with Benca, with the University of Antioquia. So we started to work on a series of tasks related to water management. And so gradually we became empowered as a community. And so we started to really focus very strongly on water management. And so we said that water management, it's not only about paying your bills, your water bills, but water management is much more. And so we started to have that transformation in the community around water management. It was not an easy process. The work that has been done is not easy, but I must say that we have achieved very beautiful things since 2007 with support, as I have said, from the Pinka Corporation. We have we have become a blue community, which is also something that was very important for our organization in 2019. So basically, we have been fighting for the territory, for water in the community. We have been fighting against agricultural overexploitation and against extraction, etc., that affect the water supply. The community of Dascao is an area where we have this expansion of several activities. We have some large farms that have a monocrop of flowers. We also have like pig growing and poultry businesses and farms, and they all need a lot of water to operate. So we have been growing exponentially to deal with these challenges because, you know, the ministry and the municipality says that growth is very fast. Well, but we are growing at a rhythm of 8.5% per year. So we started in 1975, with 180 families, and now after 50 years, and now from the 180 families, we have grown to 1,850 families. So that is a very high growth.
So building community bonds is not very easy, but we are betting on it through pillars. All the aqueducts history is based on until 2010. It was working in an organized and community-based way. So the challenges of the aqueduct is to protect the micro basin, which is through activities, activities and protection. When we are asked how many protected hectares the aqueduct has, we say there are no protected hectares because we have many farms. These are very small land plots, and if we demand that they have 15 meters, then we will see uh, that the space that the people have is very small. So we are building consensus with the people living there to protect 12 to 15 meters around the basin. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not that easy because the people are very attached to the territory. People think that we will take over their land. So we're able to build consensus with about 14 land plots. We have planted trees. We have a goal to reach 20 meters this year, but we already have made progress with two. The people that visited us in 2019 in the Blue Communities meeting here in Latin America, they saw that there's a lot of deforestation, there is a lot of crops and plastic around our land, and there's a lot of economic activity that is living uncovered territory. You have to tell us the path that you're following. Uh, we have a little time, and I think that your experience is very nice, what you are coordinating. Yes, since our aqueduct works through pumping, we have a high bill. Since 2020, we have started to see how we can become a energy community, because this is with the new government. But we already have a project to have a solar pump, and we are registered in Colombia in the Ministry of Energy as an energy community with the purpose of being community managers of energy. This is not very easy to get overnight, but we are already registered. We're on the list. Other communities were prioritized, but we're also betting on this. The challenge is that by August this year, we will have the first stage of the solar energy pumping system will be in place. This will represent some saving. We will be agents for environmental protection, and we're going to benefit our community because the reduction in the payments is going to be significant. This is one of the dreams that we have. And these are dreams that in time we accomplish. And this is our environmental pillar. If we don't have a community, then we cease to exist. Thank you so much for your testimony. There's you and the community that are building this resistance, which is this aqueduct in Cascajo. I don't know if Abel is there in the list. Maybe he's also from Colombia, and maybe he can tell us. Is Pedro there? Otherwise, we will move on to Magdalena. Magdalena is also another woman in the front line as a feminist and a water defender. She has an experience in a territory that we visited when we had an assembly, and we were able to see and feel firsthand what the stolen water from the hands of the people from the river, this violent way in which they seized water in the territory. And the corporation defends water and fights the imposed water shortage. Magdalena, welcome. Please tell us about the struggle and the cooperative and everything that is happening with the water in your territory. Please cut me off if I ramble on too long. Originally, I'm from the city of Santiago, the capital, and when I was studying geography, I became interested in topics such as extractivism, water privatization, land privatization here in Chile. And I started studying the problems in the Petorca River. And I saw that there was alternative to water privatization, which was community water management. I have been working for 4 years with the water cooperative and as a social leader for water. In a catastrophic scenario where there's a catastrophe and water shortage decrease by the government, in a context of water privatization where there are very many deep wells, where we have this internal dialogue about the protection of water. And much like in other places in Latin America, it's very dangerous to be an environmental leader. There's harassment in your private life, at home. In a scenario like this, the struggle is complicated, and we are limited in the things that we can do because we know that we are at risk. In this context, we focus on alternatives, understanding a small door that becomes a large door, an option that community water management in Chile can contribute to the small communities. We have only one public water utility, and all the other water and sanitation companies belong to foreign capitals like the Canadian and others. And I believe that community water management is more than an alternative. And in this context, I would like to recall Lucia's words when she said that communities and the basin go hand in hand, and to defend an overexploited basin with a mining culture where the extractivist mining is deep rooted, the community's feeling of belonging is very important to defend the territory because we can't do it alone. In Valparaiso, there was a study that mentioned that there's a risk, one of the greatest risks for environmental protectors is being a woman and living in Valparaiso. We are the ones at most risk at this moment. So we created alternatives. I don't like to say alternatives because I think they're more than alternatives. We are building our community-based water management based on community projects from collective creation of our own terms of how we want to manage water. We create projects based on this. We get state or non-state funding. And finally, we are able to get the water leaders, water managers to make our booklets with our experiences that talk about what community water management is. We remained in an assistance policy where help is vague and we get information from the state, and that doesn't allow us to empower ourselves in our water and sanitation management systems. We strengthen the assemblies and the water working groups. We convene ourselves, we define what we need for our communities, and we come up with the projects and the work booklets and the procedure guides and our own work. It's not the same what happens in the Valley of Petorca that has a particular natural structure. We don't have glaciers. We don't have a large water table or aquifer. We have some water, and we need to have our own vision to look for water and dig wells. So if we just stay with what the government tell us and we don't have our own knowledge, then we will be left without access to water. In 2008, the water dried up, and we started getting water tanker trucks and getting public works without the necessary conditions for water to reach all the people in all their homes. So we are in this process of become sustainable as a community, become an organization where the workers and the leaders feel part of the community of the Rio, Petorca Rio. We have a long way to go, and I think this Blue community space is a great place for coordination and also to learn the good lessons. We need to reforest the basin and protect the springs. We had a project to dig a well, and the people got together to cut down the trees instead of saying let's plant more trees to get more water. So it was going counterintuitively. So we learned in the territory by living shortage and solving problems as we
But it's
went
also necessary
along.
to learn so that we can retrieve our own traditional knowledge that we have. Very well, Magdalena. Great. And thank you for not being too long. We have already heard several words: assembly, community, self-management, own knowledge, own tools, and community power. We have been hearing about these words, words that are words of resistance. And that is why we talk about blue communities in Latin America, which are organized communities, which are about community power over water. So we are all quite similar in terms of the problems. But let's now go to Africa. Let's listen to Leonard Chang Cordy. And Leonard, welcome. Welcome to this webinar. It's great to have you here with us. And can you tell us about your struggle for water and the fight against water privatization in Africa? Can you tell us how you have raised your voices in Kenya, in Cameroon, in Senegal, in Zimbabwe, and elsewhere in Africa, how you have raised your voices against water privatization? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Leonard? And once again, welcome.
Thank you very much, Javier. Our experience is that water privatization is a real threat for people and their survival and livelihoods. In Ghana, for example, the privatization process, or what they call the reform, has resulted in very high prices of water for people. So because of that very reason, the resistance has been very, very intense. But then also, mostly, there's deep-seated concern about challenges that people have with water, the rising costs, the inaccessibility, and what have you. But then how to bring together those voices to amplify and make it clear was the challenge. So that is what we have been working on at the Africa Water Justice Network, trying to build national water justice platforms. So we've done that successfully in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, and before then, the BPP had strongly developed some networks in Senegal that have also been at the forefront. Similarly, in Southern Africa. So basically, in Kenya, for example, that was the most active place before what came to be known as the Gen Z protests. We had challenged the passage of a privatization bill, which will allow the government to, just signature, basically privatize just about everything, including water. So the resistance was around that. The was the platform, the existing national platforms. Without that, it would have been very, very difficult. But then we have been very active on that, and mostly the alternative we present is for a publicly run utility, because that is the most obvious alternative for us because of history. That is for most African countries. Colonialism destroyed most of the communal social organizations and systems that we have, and made most communities very dependent and reliant on the state. So without the state, in most communities, even what is regarded as communal or community is run by the state. If not the state, then you have an NGO. If not an NGO, then you have a private vendor. So we've gotten to a stage where we even trying to move to this ultimate form of water governance and water justice, being the community. We've not found much safety in the public because it's so huge. For example, in Ghana, there is the Ghana Water Company Limited that is responsible for the administration, distribution of water the entire country, urban cities in the entire country. And because of that, accountability and interface with ordinary people is difficult. It is very difficult. So we're trying to push to the communal, and that is where the blue communities has become very important for us, using that to identify, because it's been very difficult to find examples of well-functioning community self-managed water systems. So in Ghana, in Kenya, in South Africa, Zimbabwe, we're trying to use the blue communities to identify such communities that are doing well, and to be able to project them as examples of where we can go as communities. So basically, in Africa, that is where we are at. We are strongly against privatization and resisting that through the national water justice platforms. But then we've also found in the blue communities something that can project a vision of what we want to attain in the end. Some of the positives in terms of communities that recognize the principle of the human right to water, and you see that through their management of water, communities that also respect the environment. And you see that through how that everybody has access, and that there is no impediment in the way of people from accessing water. So that is where we are at, using the blue communities to project this. Thank you very much.
In the second round, we can talk a little bit more about the challenges facing blue communities so that we can deepen our commitment to water, to the territory, and to life even further. Pedro, over to you. Pedro? Welcome, Pedro, to this conversation. I think it's very important to speak with Pedro about the the struggle in the terror is constantly at risk and threatened because of his defense for water in the communities. So he is constantly under threat because, you know, their struggle has been very tough and very difficult. Their organization had to fight very hard in the community. And so the leaders are constantly at risk in these communities because they fight for that right to water. So I think that Pedro's experience is very interesting there in the municipality of Tasco. So Pedro, tell us about your experience of resistance to mining and defense of water in your territory. Pedro, you have to unmute yourself. Don Pedro, you need to unmute yourself. We can see you, but we are not hearing you, Pedro. Please unmute yourself. Pedro, the mic. Yes. Can you hear me now? Yes, now we can hear you, Pedro. Good morning to all of you from the Department of Oaxaca. I'm Pedro Castañeda. I'm a representative of the community in this country. And while we are involved in a very difficult struggle, for 30 years now, we have been defending our territory in the municipality of Tasco. We have been defending the moors here because the water comes from that territory, and that is the water we need. In the year 2000, well, we are peasants. We do not have a high level of schooling, but from 2000, in 2000, we started working on the petitions to defend water against mining operations. We had more than 60 mining operations in the territory, 64 mining operations that were using the water, polluting the water, and using up the water. And so they were not recognizing our right to subsistence in our territory. In 2006, with the support of all the aqueducto associations, we started with a class action. That class action started in 2006. It is a class action about our dream, but that class action has not moved forward so far. That class action is really causing many problems because it's not moving forward. So our struggle is still going on. But well, in 2012, we had a public environmental hearing to share the mining issues in the area of Paramos with the population. And that was a trigger. That public hearing was a trigger for the national and international authorities to start watching us and they also spoke with the government of Colombia, questioning what was happening in the areas where we live. Then in 2013, when we had a lot of illegal mines in the moorland in Colombia. Well, a multinational company came to the area with foreign capital, and they started to destroy the moors, the moorlands, and they did so with international corporate money. So they were granted more than 580 hectares for mining exploitation. So they wanted to extract 7,000 tons of coal from that area. So in the community, we got organized to fight against that international corporation. We organized and we started protesting during 28 days. We had a roadblock of 28 days against that corporation until they finally left the moorlands where we live, of the area where we live. After that significant struggle, for us, for the social leaders, things have not become easier, you know. We are always threatened by the multinational companies who are very powerful.
Here in Tasco, it was very hard to be a leader because in 2013 to 2020, all the authorities were from the mining sector, including the Tasco school was a mine owner in Tasco. So there was a great complication for us. In 2017, the mayor that was in office at that time intended to take the aqueducts away from the organized communities and to give it to a specialized operator, which we, the community, we found out what the mayor intended to do. And we went to him and we told him that he couldn't do that because the aqueducts were built by our grandparents, our fathers, and some of us who were in the struggle help build these aqueducts to guarantee water for the communities without paying a high price. And so that we didn't so that we had the awareness to protect water and where it came from, because we are near from where we are to the catchment site. There are 32 kilometers, and our grandparents had to put up all the labor to build the aqueducts. All of our aqueducts depend on the Moor area. And in the lower area, there is mining activities that started in 1945, 1950. And it dried up rivers that had large flows of water. And we have the Canelas, where mining activity has been going on since 1950. And we cannot find a single drop of water, not even to prepare a thing to drink. the water is completely polluted. In 2017, I forgot to mention, for us to confront the multinational company, the community had to empower itself. So when the mayor started to take the aqueducts away from us to give them to a specialized operator, we had to become organized and confront him. And we called a recall a referendum against him. At that time, the communities and the farmers became empowered ourselves to defend our aqueducts, and things like the recall referendum for this mayor. Then we continued with the struggle, and in the defense, because this doesn't stop here. At this time, with the complicity of the mayor of Tasco, we still have 19 mines in the Moore area. And we have some impasses with the authorities uh, because they continue to destroy the Moore area. Pedro, this struggle has to finish in the second round. Now, with the challenges that you have and the dream to have your territory, and this is how this Blue Communities movement is useful for your communities. So let's go to Italy. We will listen to Marco with the experience, the international voluntary movement with Blue Communities in Italy. Marco, you have the floor. Thank you, Javier. My greetings to all. It's a pleasure for me, as I already said, to participate in this webinar. It's a pleasure to share the experience, our experience in Italy with the Blue Communities. We started this work with the Blue Communities. I think many of you might recall the referendum that took place in Italy 14 years ago against the water privatization, which was a great success in terms of participation and results. After that, the privatization of water continues in a more subtle way, underground, almost silent. In this context, the mobilization after the referendum dropped. It had at that time. In this context, uh, in this context, we believe Blue Communities to promote participation, to promote the responsibility for community participation. So about 2 years ago, we started working on this topic, and we will promote these Blue Communities with an approach of a community approach that protects and looks after water. This is a key concept. A community in the sense that it can be a community, a territory-based community, or organizations, local authorities of a territory. For instance, schools in the communities that are around the schools. We work promoting the concept of participation and responsibility. What is happening is that this concept of blue communities is well liked and it promotes participation. I think that the concept promotes participation because there are two important aspects: the political aspect against water privatization, and the practical concept is doing something. These two concepts together, we are seeing that are meeting a lot of interest at various levels, at the level of the people, at the level of the citizens, at the level of teachers, schools, and students, also at the level of local institutions. We started working in the field of awareness raising and education. We, for instance, organized a online course for teachers with 20 hours of length to promote the work within the schools. We have worked on this for 2 years in many schools in various places of Italy, because this project that we accomplished involves several organizations and various places across Italy. We're working in the north, in the center, and south of Italy. And for example, in Italy, we don't have acknowledged blue communities yet. This project, we launched this project to promote the blue communities. I have some pictures that I can share with you on screen or maybe later. It's fine. It's fine if it's now. Okay. Can you allow him to share, please? Oh, now I have now I'm able to share. I have some pictures that I can show about the work we have done. For instance, we have the logo, the Blue Communities logo. This is the logo. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, we are looking at it. Yes. This logo is the one that we use to promote the blue communities. Uh, when we have acknowledged blue communities, we will have a logo that will be better disseminated. We have also produced some reports that we used to inform and raise awareness We have this report. I don't know if you're able to see it. This report, what is a report in Italian about how to defend water through food. It's a whole report on how to choose food and the matters of food sovereignty, how food products have different impacts on water, how to produce the food. We have produced many of these reports. And we have also produced some videos that I will share with you in the chat. Now we are in the phase to accepting candidacies to for the people that want to be acknowledged as blue communities. I think that in the second round, you will tell us in more detail what will entail for these chosen communities to become a blue community. So now we will go on to a very significant organization in this conversation because we have seen
talked about
many different
environmental
organizations.
organizations, and Luis Valiano, he's going to talk about a very important organization or a very important place linked to public management and remunicipalization of water management, which was also mentioned by Magdalena in Chile. And so Luis Fabiano, he will talk a little bit more about that. And this is especially considering the privatization. So, and the municipalities have played a fundamental role in that because they are like the public entities that have to guarantee access to public services for all inhabitants. But, well, here we have Luis Babiano, who will share his reflection on this with us. Once again, welcome, Luis. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you very much for inviting me to share my experience with you. Without doubt, the context, economic, social, cultural context, in this case, is determining. One thing is the experience mentioned in Colombia, for example, where basically where you know Pedro is fighting as a guardian of nature. You know, he is trying to save the heritage of the local population, and well, but our situation is quite different. But at the end of the day, there is a bridge that brings us together, namely the water crisis. The water crisis that is expressed in different ways, in different contexts. Sometimes it's really a plundering of the natural resources that is met by an organized resistance of a civil society of the local population of a territory according to its capacity. So they defend that territory and their interests. And one notion, this notion of a water crisis in the Western world or in the countries that in theory are developed countries, well, there that fight is rather expressed in terms of the climate crisis. The climate crisis that is somehow showing the lack of governance in terms of climate, the difficulties that we have to deal with governance in terms of in terms of extreme weather phenomena, mainly floods and drought. So within this setting, possibly our countries have more technological applications, and we also have access to more economic resources. But what we do not have is a criteria of reaching a consensus with the population. The operators are very efficient and very effective in terms of doing the plumbing, in terms of doing the traditional tasks, but the operators are not very efficient in terms of consensus building. However, if you need more resources, and if you have to raise your tariffs, and if you have to ask the population that at certain times of the year they have to lower their consumption, or when you have to ask the property owners to reduce their water consumption, then you need a strong consensus building culture. So at the end of the day, the bridge between water in our different countries is democracy, democratization. That is one of the big pillars that we need in the new model, to democratize, to have greater transparency, co-creation, debate, and consensus building. And so that is very important. And in the second place, we have to learn much more about community-based management. We can learn more about that from you. And well, blue communities, well, without doubt, one of the big pillars of the blue communities is that to have that community-based transparency and that democratic community-based transparency. The second pillar, and that is why I talked about the human right to water. The second pillar is the problems. Well, we know that the human right to water is related to availability, quality. It is related to sensitivity. It is related to security. It is related to flexibility and to sustainability. And, at the end of the day, possibly in countries like my country, well, to a large extent, these situations are under control, but for now, but for future generations, we we will no longer be able to offer that security unless we increase our investments, unless we have legal frameworks that ensure not only investments, but also sensitivity, accessibility, protection of the water sources, and also a strong fracture with the traditional models in which water was managed from the perspective of abundance, of being an abundant resource that did not require major interventions. Well, that concept, and also we also have the concept of social justice, not leaving anyone behind. And then we also have the need for investments for future generations. Well, those are all items that are also part of the concept of the blue communities from a perspective of management. And for the operators, this simply means that the money coming from the water, what we charge citizens for the water service, well, first of all, the costs has to be well planned, has to be based on a consensus with a view to the future. It has to be transparent. It has to be based on access, and it cannot exclude any vulnerable groups. But at the same time, we must also have that notion of ensuring the sources of supply of water. And that has to be based on a consensus with citizens, but also a consensus with the rural world as the producers of water. And that also needs to take into account the possible conflicts with agriculture, livestock, or other activities, for example, mining. So that requires a substantial change on the side of the operators, and this also has to bring us together around the notion of a different type of management of the geographical contexts in which the defense of nature is another central pillar. And this also means that we need to look at guaranteeing survival of the communities. So in that regard, once again, the blue communities are a very significant concept to deal with the situation. And then finally, it also seems to be clear that there is a need to create legal frameworks that somehow underpin everything that I have said. And this has to be done, well, in the European context, where we have the nation state that has delegated many of its responsibilities to different scale. Well, it seems clear that in that context, the blue communities can also be a concept to defend those interests beyond your municipality. That's it. Great. Thank you, Luis, for that. Thank you for that. And thank you for adequately managing time in the first round. Let's go to the second round. In the second round, we will once again start with Lucia Galvis. Lucia Galvis from Antioquia, Colombia. And well, Lucia, as Luis has just said, what could be the significance for us of the blue communities when the world is demanding international solidarity, brotherhood and sisterhood, the regeneration, the reactivation of our struggles. And that is also related to the symbolism of our struggles, etc. This is also related to our resistance. And while blue communities are a unique opportunity for us to keep that conversation alive, to keep these exchanges alive, and to reactivate our struggle and to link our struggle with the struggles of other communities, other institutions, other individuals. Something very important for us is precisely the implication of our being as men and women, as advocates, as defenders, as participants in these processes. So the implications and the passion that we put in that struggle. Anyway, Lucia, the question is, what is the significance for you and for your community organization in Cascajo? What does the link with the blue community and what being a community means in the world? Exactly. It's no longer only Latin America. So for us, this means like a seal of responsibility. It shows that you really have this backing. It's also a way in which we connect with the municipality. It is also a way to represent ourselves as Cascajo. It is to show that we are an organized community with international backing, with a considerable environmental responsibility related to our environment, our nature, our water, because we have the water on the territory and we are managing that water for the community. But at the same time, we also need to be responsible towards nature. It's not only about using the water for the community, but it is also about how you are returning the water to nature. So it's about having a good way to give back the water to nature. That is also part of our policies. our policies, namely to analyze our wastewater management systems in the community so that wastewater management would be environment friendly. We are also working on education and awareness raising with the local schools. So we tell them about the blue communities and they ask us, how do you achieve this? So we tell them that this is about transparent management, that it is about clean and responsible water management. We tell them that the blue communities are also about going against bottled water and etc. etc. So in all our activities in the communities, we do not want to see any bottled water because that is the first way in which our water is privatized. And bottled water is also very expensive. So that's very important what we do. And gradually, we see that gradually people are really seeing what we are trying to do. So we are trying to really sowing that seed. You know, people are realizing that we are defending water and where we live, well, urbanization is growing exponentially. So that is the context in which we are acting. But definitely we are there. We are there showing that our territory must always be focusing on environmental care and responsible community-based water management. So we are about to celebrate our 50th anniversary, and on that occasion, we will have an event on water management and what it means for the community of Cascajo to be a blue community that manages the nature and water transparently and responsibly. So, and to also show that we are doing many things that we can do many things as long as we manage things with transparency and responsibility.
Looking after the community and the extension of networks that are needed for the benefit of the community's aqueduct. Being a blue community is the credit that we're doing things with transparency, that we are being friendly with the water and our environment, and that we're in ongoing struggle to strengthen others and invite them to be blue communities in our territory, in our location. This is not well recognized in the department, but in the municipality, the assembly that we held, we received an acknowledgement where they praise us for being the only aqueduct in Antioquia that's a blue community. So we need to start to tell this story so that other communities in Maridilla and Antioquia want to become blue communities. Very well. This resonates a lot with me. Um, uh, and because Marco said, a community that looks after, and everything that we can invent, starting with our own tools and our own knowledge within the communities. So Magdalena, the same question for you. What does has been a blue community meant to your community? I think that as a cooperative and community union, being a blue community, the first is it helps us not to feel alone in the struggle and to acknowledge water as a human right. Often people water service in feels like something like a privilege, like everything is about infrastructure and engineering. And the truth is that it allows us to be less crazy. It helps us to feel sane if we know that we have a common way of thinking and that we have a solidarity network. We became united as blue communities in a search to help a community called El Bronce that cannot have access to water because they don't own the land. So they're not, it's not possible to make a legal project, legal water supply project. So they have their own networks, their own ponds. So they have water insecurity. Having this international platform helps us to make these problems visible, to learn from experiences, to have international help, to understand that we have to insert our community, the principles of the blue communities to fight against bottled water. And that water management has to be a public service. This concept of water management is very deep rooted in us, and we demand that the community approach is maintained within municipal management, and that the need to work hand in hand with the communities. When we talk about community-based water management in Colombia, is complicated because there are principles that were broken during the dictatorships, and we have many uncertainties in the Chilean community. The defense of the community is urgent and it's hard. So I'm very thankful for this forum because it gives us clarity. It shows us which is the way, which one is the way, and that we're not alone in this. Often the work falls on very few of us, and we have to manage large organizations, but that are very scattered. So just like this benefits us, we also have the duty to defend the communities and show that we're part of something larger. It's important to make this visible and that workers and leaders feel proud of their community organizations, and the communities, the partners need to know that the cooperative plays a role in water management, and also in in coming up with initiatives to increase access to water. I'm thankful to be here and to show you what our problems are, and to learn new tools. We're very thankful to the new Blue communities. So now we go back to Pedro, and Pedro will tell us what the Blue communities have meant in such hard situations, such as the fight against mining and the threats that they have received. So, Pedro, a question. What happens to Axoatas for you to be linked to the Blue communities, and what you get from this process? You have the floor. In our case, we have endured many abuses. We had a French oil company, and as a community, we had to face this. Now, in February 2024, through all the actions that we carried out as organized communities, we saw that the bidding for this oil company and the Department of Guayaca, there were 4 communities actually. So in this environmental impact studies, they didn't mention the headwaters. So by taking the coordinates, we were able to see that these headwaters were not included in the environmental impact assessments. So all these struggles for us meant lessons learned, very important lessons learned, because since 2017, We're monitoring, doing a community monitoring that allows us through the NGO in Santa Colombia to identify the amount of heavy metals that these acid drainage from the mines have. This started with we started with the blue communities, and this meant for us a very important meaning and support to protect water as a common good in an ongoing situation of pressure by the communities to sell, to privatize water, which we are opposed to. We say that the water cannot be sold. It must be guaranteed. Access to water has to be guaranteed for people to survive. For us to being a blue community promotes many public community agreements with the local governments and to speak and to resist the associations and the privatizations in Colombia. One of the lessons learned that we can is that we can still protect water in our regions in spite of the death threats that we get as the social leaders, as we say, the organized communities. We have to keep resisting. There are other regions where there was mining activity and they no longer have water to survive. So this encourages to continue with the fight and to always go forward to guarantee water and keep it from being a business. Water must not be a business in Bolivia, in Colombia. We must always fight, and being a blue community guarantees us because there's an acknowledgement of the struggle in which we have been already for 30 years to protect our moor and our territory. From these testimonies, from these accounts, we need to reflect as blue communities and position the communities and the water defenders and work as international solidarity network. We know how this is to protect the life and that of our communities. So let's go back to Leonard and let him go a little more in depth what it means to them and what value it adds to the resistance, right, to be a blue community. How Africa is experiencing this, how these countries are dealing with this as a lucid organization and as a quality seal. When we talk about the communities, we're talking about community and responsibility and of having some principles that makes us co-responsible for the defense of water. So, Leonard, you have the floor for you to tell us about the challenges as a blue community.
Okay. Thank you very much once again, Avia. So I think the blue communities have added something to our work here. I mean, for a long time, we've been resisting and we've been fighting against privatization. But then it's also giving us something in addition to what we are fighting against, something to fight for. So basically fighting for the human rights to water fighting for a safe environment, clean gutters, fighting for the right of everyone to have access to water. So basically, that is the little bit of positivity it has added. Despite this, I mean, there's been some challenges in terms of the rolling out of the blue communities here in Africa. The conversation about adopting the blue communities here in Africa started about 3 years ago, but then we were only eventually able to launch it just last year, that's 2024, because we have to do the initial work of consultations, building an action and concept plan, agreeing on what principles should guide it and all of that. I mean, all to build some kind of strong ownership for the blue communities. So that took some time. But then despite those agreements and there are some challenges that I wish to discuss. The first one, one of the challenge that we've had has to do with certifications, also placing a stamp of the blue communities on an organization or a community as a blue community. The question arose, for what period of time will that be valid? Because an organization today could ascribe to these principles, and then tomorrow you'll find them doing something else, and will not be properly representing the values and principles of the blue communities. So those questions, which were not earlier on catered for by the concepts that we had, came up, and still discussing. I mean, there's been suggestions about withdrawal of processes for review of those certifications and stamps, and if possible, withdrawal if some of the principles or values are lacking. The second one has to do with the difficulties we had in the conversation about banning or phasing out of plastics, because for most of Africa, sachet water has become very common, which in itself is symptomatic of the huge challenge that we have, and the confidence, the lack of confidence people have in tap water, because most of them are unsafe. So people rely on what they call pure water, which is packaged in plastics, and which have also become an environmental nightmare, blocking most drains. For example, here in Ghana, it rains for about 15 minutes and you have places flooding because most of the gutters, most of the drains are choked with this. But then people are still reliant on that as a so-called safe alternative. So, I mean, there's been some challenge with adopting the banning. So we have to settle for gradual phasing out of the plastics. The second issue has to do with the attempts of some of the countries to be placing the stamps on several schools. At a point, an organization which was somewhat, maybe innocently, in their programs promoting privatization, also got the certification in Nigeria, and we had to discuss that. So the point is that we value this blue community stamp, and we would want to preserve that value by not just dishing it out just for the numbers, but then only dishing it out, only providing it for the organizations and communities that so well deserve it. And there shouldn't be any haste in terms of, but then once a community or an organization deserves it, why not? So, for example, in our discussions, because of some of the challenges that we have with the principles, the question arose whether certification should come about if an organization qualifies for all the principles or qualifies on all the principles or any. But then we later on managed to settle on at least the stance against privatization should be clear. So that plus any of the other principles should qualify an organization to become a blue community. So these are some of the issues or challenges that we will still need to address to build a stronger and highly valued blue community stamp. Thank you.
Very well. Leonard is saying that when you are a blue community, well, it is about commitments, and those commitments have to be shown. I think that Leonard is really inviting us to think how we can ensure those processes of selection of the blue communities and the certification of the blue communities, and also the monitoring of the commitments taken on by the blue communities, but obviously based on something that is fundamental as the movement for water justice, namely trust and responsibility and ethics in this. Okay, we are going to ask Marco Job in this final round. We are going to ask you about the challenges of the blue communities. Javier, so sorry, but well, you know, I have another video conference in five minutes. So maybe I can go first. No problem. You can go first, Luis. No problem at all. Yes, okay. Those people around the Mediterranean, they understand each other, right? Okay, so I think it's a very good thing to talk about accountability. The topic of the blue communities, as I have said, this commitment is taken on by a very small group of operators, but not by the majority of them. Hopefully, the problem would be that we had a great demand and that we cannot control the demand. No, but the reality is different. The reality in the existing social and political context is that we have very few operators who have taken on this commitment to the blue communities. They all have initiatives related to the dissemination of water management, which they identify as something related to environmental care. So they say, we make available water to you that is cheap, that belongs to all of us, that is somehow a symbol of our city, of our town. So there is this symbolical component that has a lot of weight, and that can be more or less developed by the different operators. But that's a positive message, and it's adequate. And without doubt, this should become more generalized. Let me tell you that thanks to this type of initiatives, we have been able to achieve that there is a European directive now, an EU directive around the quality of water that includes two of our demands. One is protection of the water sources, or the obligation to have security around the water sources. And the other one is that all operators have to organize awareness campaigns on water. Okay, so there are achievements to be mentioned. And of course, we have to look at further development of those achievements. Another important issue, well, and that EU directive also includes the following topic, which is very important. A very important field among the public operators is the vulnerable groups. The identification of the human right to water by most of the institutions is very limited. So they mainly focus on access. So, and it is about accessibility for vulnerable groups. So that is to say that someone, regardless of his or her income, people must have access to a certain number of liters of water in a certain period of time. So the vital minimum of water, exactly what is called the vital minimum. And well, most public operators, they have gradually, but not without a debate, but somehow they have been recognizing that vital minimum in their decision making. And without doubt, the blue communities have been driving and insisting on this vital minimum. So the second important leg in accountability is precisely related to accessibility for these vulnerable groups. And the third leg, which is not very well developed, is participation. So in recent years, while somehow a very small group of cities have built water observatories. Those water observatories are quite different in terms of size, in terms of social purpose, but at least we have some observatories, some physical observatories where management of the operators can sit down with the politicians that govern our cities and that preside over these societies and civil society, and also with participation of civil society, especially the more active civil society that is committed to this topic and that somehow engages with these demands by creating new fields of work around water issues, and that contributes these measures so that we can have a city or a town that is more open, more sustainable, and more friendly. At what level of development are we at the moment? Well, we are doing much better than at the beginning of the century because software, without doubt, software has changed, but we also have to be critical in terms of the degree of development, which is a percentage, a small percentage, not very well known, among other things, because we live in an economic and political context in which common goods are being questioned. So in that context, the blue communities are not only focusing on proposition, but also on resistance. And that's it. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that these last interventions are very important because they talk about the values of Blue communities, the philosophical and ethical principles underpinning Blue communities, but also how to do this and what challenges we are facing in this regard. So I would like to invite Marco now. Oh, I also wanted to say that, well, if anyone is interested in our material, we can share that. Yes, exactly. In the chat, we have been putting links to documents of interest to the participants in this conversation. And well, we will continue this conversation on Blue communities anyway, and we will continue to encourage this type of exchanges and talks, you know, between the different continents. So this is only the first step of this movement. So we have to become a more international movement. We have to build this brotherhood and sisterhood at international level between the Blue communities. We have to continue building bridges at the level of this narrative. Now I hand over the floor to Marco for some final comments on the challenges and the significance of Blue communities. Marco, in his first intervention, Marco talks a lot about what they are doing with the schools, with the communities, with the campaigns, and that's very important. Those are very valuable tools for a critical citizenships that participates. Also the observatories mentioned by Luis and also the best practices that have been mentioned. So Marco, please, your final intervention in this round. Very well. I'm going to go back to what Luis has said, that the Blue communities are entities of resistance. I think that this is something very significant also for us, because in a context in which participation is hindered by strong forces, in which the decisions are taken away from the communities, well, the Blue communities represent a very important tool not to give up that participation in water management, not to delegate that decision making. For us, this is a very important significance of the Blue communities. That is why we are working with the schools, with citizens, but also with the public water management communities, with the universities, the municipalities, with other institutions, because we have created, for example, a synergy between the Blue communities and another tool that we have in Italy, and that is recognized in Italy, and that is a tool that we call contracts. River contracts. I don't know if I could give that a better name, but it's like river contracts, which is a tool established in the law. It is a voluntary tool for strategic planning of the rivers with participation. And so it concerns management at the basin level. It also concerns territorial management, community participation in activities, etc. So this tool, well, especially here, we make a synergy between those tools, the Blue communities and the river contracts, because they pursue very similar results in terms of responsibility, in terms of building communities that care for the water, in this case, the rivers. So these tools are complementary, and that's a very interesting dynamic here. I don't know whether that tool also exists elsewhere. I don't think so. I don't think so. But well, we do have that tool, and maybe is some other time I can explain a little bit more about that tool. Anyway, it is about being part of an international movement, and that creates the sense of an international identity, but with a local reflection.
I believe that, as it was already mentioned, at international level, we must do whatever we can to strengthen ourselves. For instance, working to protect the people that are being threatened. I think this is important, and we have to take it into account in the international community. I think the Blue communities could help in this point to strengthen, to give an international identity to the Blue communities. Thank you. I think this was a very rich and productive conversation that refreshes the approaches for water justice and a common good. A conversation between the public and the private sectors, an urgency to be more visible, and for us not to abandon the work that has taught us a lot. The educational campaigns, work with children and youth, the work with our organized citizens, and all the things that we have designed and invented to have more participation, the political and social control systems. I think this dialogue, this conversation, and the tools that we can share, the videos, the flyers, will enrich the movement. And as we have been for some period working in this, and we have experiences, we hope that these materials are going to help in the territories that we visit with new concepts, with new information, with new tools. I think we accomplished the purpose very well. On behalf of the platform of a community, a public community platform of the Americans and other organizations, we thank you for the participation. We thank you for sharing and saying, look at this material. We deeply thank our interpretation team. The interpretation was wonderful. We could hear Leonard speaking in this conversation very clearly and accurately. We thank Engineering Without Frontiers, Without Borders, and for the organizations of this webinar and for the actions that are working with the Blue communities. Thank you so much. And I will ask for an applause for this wonderful meeting. Thank you all.